The black sedan rolled to a smooth stop at the edge of Miru Park, its polished surface catching the late afternoon sun like a mirror. Jae-Ryun didn't wait for his driver to open the door. He stepped out himself, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored charcoal suit, his movements precise and controlled. Everything about him spoke of power held on a tight leash. The way he stood, the way his dark eyes swept the park with calculated assessment, the way his right-hand man Min Dae-suk fell into step beside him without needing instruction. Yoon Se-era emerged from the other side of the vehicle, her cream-colored dress immaculate, her posture perfect. She was beautiful in the way expensive things were beautiful, polished, curated, intentional. She slipped her hand through Jae-Ryun's arm with practiced elegance, and he allowed it because this was what was expected. This was the role he played. Heir to one of Korean City's most powerful families. Engaged to the daughter of their closest ally. A man whose life had been mapped out before he'd learned to walk. They moved toward the park's central pavilion where the meeting would take place. A simple exchange of documents. A confirmation of terms. The kind of business that happened in broad daylight because power didn't always hide in shadows. Sometimes it walked through parks on sunny afternoons, wearing expensive suits and confident smiles. Jae-Ryun's mind was already on the next item in his schedule when his entire world stopped. It happened in the space between one heartbeat and the next. His eyes, trained to scan for threats and opportunities, caught movement near the playground area. A woman. Her back was to him, but something in the curve of her shoulders, the way she moved, the rich dark brown of her skin against a simple yellow sundress, sent recognition crashing through him like a tidal wave. No. It couldn't be. His feet stopped moving. Se-era stumbled slightly at the sudden halt, her perfectly painted lips forming a question he didn't hear. Dae-suk's hand moved instinctively toward his jacket, reading Jae-Ryun's body language as threat assessment, scanning for danger. But the danger wasn't external. The woman turned slightly, laughing at something, and Jae-Ryun saw her profile. Time collapsed. 4 years evaporated. He was 26 again, standing in a tiny kitchen that smelled like spices he couldn't name, watching her cook while she told him stories about Lagos, about her grandmother's restaurant, about dreams that tasted like hope and felt like freedom. Zalika. Zalika Adeyemi. The name he'd forced himself to forget. The woman he'd left behind when duty called him home. The one mistake he'd never been able to fully bury, no matter how deep he'd tried to dig the grave. His chest constricted. His hands, always steady, trembled once before he forced them still. Jae-Ryun. Se-era's voice was sharp with concern and confusion. What's wrong? He couldn't answer. Couldn't speak. Because Zalika had turned fully now, bending down, and that's when he saw them. 3 children. Toddlers, maybe 3 years old, tumbling around her legs like puppies. 2 boys and a girl, their skin a beautiful blend of brown and cream, their hair dark and curly. They were laughing, reaching for her, pulling at her dress, and she was trying to manage all 3 at once while juggling shopping bags and a stroller that had seen better days. Jae-Ryun's mind, sharp and analytical even in crisis, began calculating automatically. 3 years old. 4 years since he'd last seen her. 9 months. The math was simple. Brutal. Impossible to deny. One of the boys looked up, distracted by a bird, and Jae-Ryun saw his face fully. The shape of his eyes. The set of his jaw. Features that would sharpen with age into something Jae-Ryun saw in the mirror every morning. The world tilted. Sir. Dae-suk's voice was low, urgent. He'd followed Jae-Ryun's gaze. He'd seen. Sir, we need to move. But Jae-Ryun couldn't move. He stood frozen, watching as Zalika struggled with the children, as she crouched down to tie a shoelace, as she smiled at something one of them said. She looked tired. More than tired. Exhausted. There were shadows under her eyes that hadn't been there before. Her dress was clean but faded. The bags she carried were from a discount grocery store. She looked like someone who was drowning but still trying to smile. And those children. His children. Because they were his, he knew it with a certainty that bypassed logic and went straight to something primal in his gut. Those were his sons. His daughter. 3 lives he hadn't known existed. 3 lives he'd abandoned without knowing. The little girl, her hair pulled into 3 small puffs on her head, suddenly turned and looked directly at him. For a moment, Their eyes met across the distance of the park. She smiled, bright and innocent, and waved a chubby hand. Something in Jae-Ryun's chest cracked. "Jae-Ryun, you're scaring me." Saera's grip on his arm had tightened. "What are you looking at?" He finally found his voice. "Nothing." The word came out rough, unfamiliar. "I thought I saw someone." "Who?" "No one. A mistake." He forced himself to turn away, to walk toward the pavilion, to complete the meeting that no longer mattered. But his mind stayed behind, calculating, measuring, trying to process the impossible. Before we dive deeper into what happens next, I have to ask, where in the world are you right now? Seriously, drop your location in the comments because we love knowing how far these stories travel across the globe. Are you watching from Seoul, Lagos, New York, somewhere we've never heard of? Tell us. And if you're invested in finding out what Jae-Ryun does next, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single moment of this story. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this unfolds. Now, let's get back to the moment Jae-Ryun's carefully controlled world starts to crumble. The meeting passed in a blur. Jae-Ryun signed documents he barely read, nodded at terms he didn't process, shook hands he didn't feel. His body performed its role with mechanical precision while his mind spiraled through calculations and memories. He remembered the night he'd met Zalika. A hole-in-the-wall restaurant in a part of the city his family would never visit. He'd gone there on a whim, escaping a suffocating family dinner, and found her behind the counter, creating something that smelled like heaven and looked like art. She'd smiled at him, not recognizing who he was, treating him like just another customer. It had been intoxicating. He remembered 6 months of stolen moments. Late nights in her tiny apartment. Her teaching him to cook jollof rice while laughing at his failures. Her skin against his in the dark, her voice. Whispering dreams about opening a restaurant someday, something that blended her West African heritage with Korean flavors. Something new. Something theirs. He remembered his father's voice on the phone, cold and absolute. Time to come home. Time to grow up. Time to accept responsibility. The engagement to Saera had already been arranged. The path forward was clear. There was no room for a foreign woman with impossible dreams and no family connections. He remembered the cowardice of leaving a note instead of facing her. The shame that had burned in his gut for months afterward. The way he'd forced himself to stop thinking about her, to bury her memory under layers of duty and obligation. But he'd never imagined this. Children. His children. When the meeting finally ended, Jae-Ryun walked back toward the car with Saera chattering beside him about wedding preparations. He wasn't listening. His eyes scanned the park desperately, but Zalika and the children were gone. Vanished like they'd never been there at all. Maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe the stress was finally breaking him. Maybe. No. He knew what he'd seen. Once Saera was safely deposited at her parents' estate with promises to call later, Jae-Ryun finally allowed himself to breathe. Dae-suk drove in silence, waiting, until they were well away from potential ears. "Talk to me," Jae-Ryun said quietly. Dae-suk's eyes met his in the rearview mirror. "You want me to investigate?" "Yes." "The woman and the children?" "Yes." "Sir, if those children are yours." "I know." Jae-Ryun's voice was sharp. Then, softer, "I know what it means." "Do it anyway." "Everything." "Full background." "Everything." "Where she lives." "How she lives." "The children's names, birth dates, medical records." "Who the father is listed as." His jaw tightened. "If there is one listed." Dae-suk nodded slowly. "This won't be quiet. People will notice if I dig too deep. Then dig carefully. But dig thoroughly." Jae-Ryun leaned forward. "Dae-suk, I need to know. I need to know if they're yours." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither wanted to voice. "By tomorrow morning," Jae-Ryun said. "I want to know by tomorrow morning." That night, Jae-Ryun didn't sleep. He stood on the balcony of his penthouse apartment, overlooking Baekryun City's glittering skyline, and tried to reconcile the man he'd become with the man he'd been. The man who'd loved Zalika had been younger, more naive, still believing he could somehow escape his legacy. That man had died the day he'd walked away from her. Or so he'd thought. But seeing her again, seeing those children, had resurrected something he'd thought buried. Not love, not exactly. That would be too simple. But responsibility. Obligation. Guilt that sat in his stomach like lead. If those children were his, and deep down, he knew they were, then he'd abandoned them. Left them to struggle. Left Zalika to face pregnancy and childbirth and single motherhood alone. Left them in poverty while he lived in luxury. The kind of man who did that wasn't a man at all. His phone buzzed at 6 in the morning. Dae-suk's name flashed on the screen. "Tell me." Jae-Ryun's voice was hoarse from disuse. "Her name is still Zalika Adeyemi. She lives in Dockline District, apartment 3C in a building that should probably be condemned. She works 3 jobs, a morning shift at a commercial bakery, afternoon hours running a small food truck near the university, and evening catering gigs when she can get them." Jae-Ryun closed his eyes. The children are Cairo, Amari, and Noel. Triplets. Born 3 years, 2 months ago at Bakerian General Hospital. Birth certificates list father as unknown. Dae-suk paused. "Sir, the hospital records show it was a difficult birth. Premature. All 3 spent time in NICU. The medical bills. How much? Still being paid off. She's on a payment plan that will take another 7 years at current rate. 7 years of debt for bringing his children into the world while he'd been planning his engagement party. What else? She's behind on rent. 3 months. The building manager has started eviction proceedings. Utilities were shut off twice last year. The food truck permit is about to expire and she doesn't have the renewal fee. There's a WIC program assistance for the kids, but..." Dae-suk's voice roughened with something that might have been anger. "Sir, she's drowning. One more crisis and she goes under." Jae-Ryun thought of her smile in the park. Tired but still there. Still fighting. "And here's the part that matters most," Dae-suk continued. "As of yesterday afternoon, there's an open case with Child Protective Services. Someone filed a report about the living conditions. A social worker named Eleanor Briggs is scheduled to visit the apartment today." The world stopped again. "What time?" 2 p.m. Jae-Ryun looked at his watch. 8 hours. If that apartment is as bad as it sounds, if they see those conditions. Dae-suk didn't need to finish. They both knew. The children could be removed. Placed in temporary care. Foster homes. His children. Scattered to strangers because their father had been too much of a coward to face the woman he'd wronged. "I need an address." Jae-Ryun was already moving, grabbing his jacket. "I need it now." "Sir, what are you going to do?" "What I should have done 4 years ago." "You can't just show up. You'll scare her. She'll run." Jae-Ryun stopped. Dae-suk was right. Zalika had every reason to hate him. Every reason to slam the door in his face. If he approached directly, if he tried to force his way back into her life, she'd fight. And fighting would waste time they didn't have. "Then I don't show up," he said slowly. "Not yet." "Sir." "The rent. Pay it. All of it, including what's owed. The utilities, the medical bills, the food truck permit. Pay everything." "That's not subtle." "I don't care about subtle. I care about those children having a roof over their heads when that social worker arrives." Jae-Ryun's mind was racing now, calculating, planning. The building manager, Rafael Cruz. Find out what it costs to make him forget about eviction. Hell, buy the building if you have to. "Sir, she'll know it was you." "Good. Let her know. Let her be angry. As long as she's angry from inside a stable home with her children safe, I don't care." Dae-suk was quiet for a moment. Then, "You're sure about this? Once you step into their lives, you can't walk away again." "I'm not walking away." Jae-Ryun's voice was granite. "Not this time. Not ever again. Even if it costs you everything else." The question hung between them. Everything else meant the family. The business. The power. The life he'd built on the foundation of abandoning her. Sierra. The alliances. The future that had been promised. All of it balanced against 3 children he'd seen for 30 seconds in a park. "Find out what it costs," Jae-Ryun repeated. "Then pay it." By noon, the machinery was in motion. Wire transfers flew through accounts designed to obscure their source. Rafael Cruz, the building manager, received a call from a lawyer he'd never heard of, informing him that all outstanding debts for apartment 3C had been cleared, along with 6 months' advance rent, and that any further harassment of the tenant would result in legal action. The utility companies received similar calls. The hospital's billing department found a mysterious benefactor had cleared the entire balance. Jae-Ryun stood in his office, watching the city below, and imagined Zalika's reaction. She would know. The moment she got the calls, the moment she saw her accounts, she would know exactly who had done this. And she would be furious. Good. Fury meant she was thinking about him. Fury meant the door wasn't completely closed. His phone buzzed with an update from Dae-suk. The social worker had arrived early. She was currently inside the apartment. Jae-Ryun's hands tightened on the windowsill. Everything he'd done, all the money he'd thrown at the problem, it might not be enough. If the apartment itself was too damaged, if the social worker decided the environment was unsuitable, if Zalika's exhaustion read as inability to cope. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered immediately. Yes. Silence. Then a voice he'd thought he'd never hear again. "You have a lot of nerve." Zalika. Her voice was exactly as he remembered it. Rich, melodic, carrying the slight accent that came from growing up speaking Yoruba and English before learning Korean. But now it was edged with something sharp enough to draw blood. "How dare you?" The words were quiet, but they hit like punches. "How dare you think you can just swoop in with your money and fix things? How dare you think that makes up for anything? Zalika." "No. You don't get to say my name. You lost that right when you left a note on my kitchen counter and disappeared like I was nothing." Her voice cracked, but she steadied it. "You don't get to play savior now." "I'm not trying to." "Then what? What are you trying to do, Jae-Ryun?" She spat his name like poison. "Ease your conscience. Feel like a good person. You abandoned me. You abandoned them. You don't get to decide you care now just because you happened to see us in a park." "I didn't know." The words burst out of him. "I didn't know about the children." "And whose fault is that?" Her laugh was bitter. "I tried to find you. For 3 months after you left, I tried. Your phone was disconnected. Your apartment was empty. You vanished. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I kept trying because I thought you deserved to know, and you know what I found instead?" Jae-Ryun closed his eyes. "I found your engagement announcement in the society pages. 6 months after you left me. You went back to your perfect life with your perfect fiancé and you never looked back." "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like? Explain it to me. Make me understand how the man who said he loved me, who talked about future and forever, could walk away so easily." "It wasn't easy." His voice was raw. "Zalika, it was the hardest thing I've ever done." "Then why did you do it?" The question stripped him bare. "Why?" "Because his father demanded it. Because duty called. Because he'd been 26 and stupid and convinced himself he had no choice. Because walking away had seemed easier than fighting a battle he believed he'd lose." "I was a coward," he said quietly. "I was scared and I was weak and I took the easy road. And I'm sorry. God, Zalika, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't feed my children. Sorry doesn't keep the lights on. Sorry doesn't sit with them at night when they ask why they don't have a daddy like the other kids." Her voice broke completely now. "Sorry is just a word, Jae-Ryun. And I don't need your words. I needed you. They needed you. And you weren't there. Let me be there now." "No. Please. No." She was crying now, he could hear it. "You don't get to walk back in just because you're ready. This isn't about you. This is about 3 children who deserve better than a father who shows up when it's convenient." "I want to meet them." He hadn't meant to say it, but now that the words were out, he couldn't take them back. "I want to know them." "Absolutely not. They're my children. They're my children. I'm the one who carried them. I'm the one who was there for every fever, every nightmare, every milestone. You're just a stranger who happens to share DNA. Then let me be more than that. Jae-Ryun's voice shook with an emotion he didn't recognize. Let me try. Why should I? Give me one good reason why I should let you anywhere near them. Because they deserve to know their father. Because you deserve support, even if you hate me. Because I can give them things you can't. Don't. Her voice went cold. Don't you dare finish that sentence. My children don't need your money. They need stability. They need someone who won't disappear when things get hard. Can you promise me that? Can you swear you won't leave again? Could he? Jae-Ryun thought about his family, about the expectations, about the life that would make room for a foreign woman and mixed-race children. The life that had already been planned without them. His silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, Zalika said softly. Keep your money, Jae-Ryun. Keep your guilt. Keep your empty apologies. Stay out of our lives. I can't do that. You don't have a choice. Neither do you. His voice hardened. That social worker is there right now, isn't she? Mrs. Eleanor Briggs. She's looking at your apartment, evaluating, deciding if you can provide a stable environment for 3 toddlers. The sharp intake of breath told him he was right. How do you? She stopped. Understanding dawned. You're having me watched. I'm having you protected. I don't need your protection. Yes, you do. Zalika, be angry at me later. Hate me tomorrow. But right now, you need help, and I'm offering it. Let me help. There are strings attached. There are always strings with men like you. No strings. The lie tasted bitter, but he told it anyway. I'll pay everything. Rent, bills, food, medical care, education. Everything. You don't have to see me. You don't have to talk to me. You don't have to explain me to the children. Just let me help. Why? Her voice was small now, confused. Why would you do that? Because I love you. The thought came unbidden and he shoved it down viciously. He didn't have the right to love her. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. Because they're mine, he said instead. Because I owe you 4 years of child support. Because it's the right thing to do. The right thing would have been staying. I know. But I can't change the past. I can only try to be better now. She was quiet for so long he thought she'd hung up. Then, the social worker just left. She's coming back in 2 weeks to check on things. To make sure the stability is real and not just temporary. It'll be real. Will it? Or will you disappear again as soon as you get bored playing father? The accusation stung because it was fair. He'd given her every reason not to trust him. I'm not going anywhere, Zalika. Not this time. We'll see. She took a shaky breath. I have to go. The kids need lunch. Wait. But she was gone. The line went dead. Jae-Ryun stood in his office, phone still pressed to his ear, and felt the weight of 4 years of mistakes pressing down on him. He'd heard her voice. He'd heard her pain. He'd heard the exhaustion and fear and desperate strength of a woman who'd been fighting alone for too long. And he'd heard his children in the background. Small voices chattering, a burst of laughter, the sound of life and chaos and everything he'd missed. He looked at his reflection in the window. The heir. The future head of the family. The man engaged to marry for alliance rather than love. That man couldn't have Zalika and the children. But maybe, just maybe, he could become someone who could. His phone buzzed. Dae-suk. The social worker filed her initial report. Apartment was clean, children were healthy and clean, Ms. Adeyemi was coherent and capable. Situation flagged for follow-up due to recent financial instability, but immediate removal not recommended. Relief hit Jae-Ryun so hard his knees weakened. When's the follow-up? 2 weeks. They'll be checking to make sure the improvements aren't temporary. Watching for signs of ongoing stability. 2 weeks to prove this wasn't a gesture. 2 weeks to show he meant it. 2 weeks to figure out how to be a father to 3 children who didn't know he existed. Dae-suk, Jae-Ryun said slowly, I need you to find out everything about triplets. Everything about raising toddlers. About autism, one of them, Noel, I think I saw signs. Sir. Everything. Books, articles, expert consultants. I don't care what it costs. I need to know these children. I need to understand what they need. You're really doing this? It wasn't a question, but Jae-Ryun answered anyway. Yes. I'm really doing this. Your family won't accept it. Then they'll have to learn. Sierra won't accept it. Then she'll have to learn too. You could lose everything. Jae-Ryun looked out at the city again. All this power, all this wealth, all this control. He'd sacrificed everything for it, including the woman he'd loved and the children he'd never known. What was it worth if he had to keep sacrificing? Then I'll lose everything, he said quietly. But I won't lose them. Not again. He hung up and immediately made another call. Sierra. We need to talk. The conversation with Sierra had gone exactly as badly as Jae-Ryun expected. She'd listened in silence as he explained, carefully, clinically, that circumstances had changed. That there were complications from his past that required his attention. That their engagement, while politically valuable, might need to be reconsidered. He didn't mention Zalika by name. Didn't mention the children at all. But Sierra wasn't stupid. She'd seen his face in the park. She'd felt him freeze. Whatever composure she'd maintained during the call shattered the moment she realized what he wasn't saying. There's another woman. Her voice had been ice. And children. He hadn't denied it. The silence that followed was the sound of alliances cracking, of careful political calculations crumbling, of his family's plans disintegrating. My father will never forgive this, she'd said finally. Neither will yours. I know. You're choosing them over everything we've built. I'm choosing to be responsible for my mistakes. How noble. The sarcasm cut deep. How very honorable of you to abandon one woman for duty and then abandon duty for another woman. That had stung because it was true. There was no moral high ground here. No heroic redemption. Just a man trying to stop making the same mistake twice and probably making new ones instead. I'm sorry, Sierra. No, you're not. You're relieved. She'd laughed, bitter and sharp. You never wanted this marriage anyway. I was just convenient. A beautiful obligation. Now you have an excuse to escape. She'd hung up before he could respond. Not that he had a response. She was right about all of it. 3 days passed in a strange limbo. Jae-Ryun worked, attended meetings, maintained appearances. But his mind was in Dockline District, in a cramped apartment with 3 children he'd never met. Dae-suk provided daily updates. Zalika hadn't tried to contact him. The bills were being paid automatically now, money flowing from accounts she couldn't trace directly back to him. The food truck was back in operation. The utilities stayed on. Surface stability. But Jae-Ryun knew better than anyone that surface stability was just another word for fragile peace. On the 4th day, his phone rang at 2 in the morning. Unknown number again. Hello. She's sick. Zalika's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Amari. She's burning up and I can't get the fever down and the emergency room wait is 4 hours and I don't know what to do. I'm sending a car. Jae-Ryun was already moving, grabbing his keys. Don't go to the emergency room. I know a pediatrician. Private practice. He'll meet us there. Us. I'm coming with you. Jae-Ryun. Argue later. Right now, let me help. He heard her harsh breathing, heard a child crying in the background, heard the sound of a woman at the end of a rope trying desperately not to break. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The car arrived at her building in 20 minutes. Jae-Ryun had called ahead, woken Dr. Kim with promises of payment that erased any complaints about the hour. When he climbed the 3 flights of stairs to apartment 3C, the elevator was broken. He found the door already open. The apartment was small. Painfully small. A living room that doubled as a bedroom, 1 actual bedroom with 3 toddler beds crammed together, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. But it was clean. Spotless, actually, despite the chaos of 3 children. Someone had tried very hard to make it a home. Zalika stood in the middle of the living room, holding a little girl wrapped in a blanket. The child's face was flushed, her eyes glassy with fever. This must be Amari. Even sick, she was beautiful. She had Zalika's eyes and what looked like the shape of Jae-Ryun's face, though it was hard to tell with her features soft with toddlerhood. Behind Zalika, two little boys peeked out from the bedroom doorway. Identical twins. Cairo and Noel. They stared at Jae-Ryun with wide, uncertain eyes. "The car's downstairs," Jae-Ryun said quietly, trying not to startle anyone. "Dr. Kim is waiting at his office." Zalika nodded, not meeting his eyes. "I need to bring the boys. I can't leave them alone." "Of course." Getting 3 toddlers and 1 exhausted mother down 3 flights of stairs and into a car in the middle of the night was chaos. One of the twins, Cairo, based on the shirt that said his name, kept asking questions in a mix of Korean and English. "Where going? Who man? Mama, who he?" The other twin, Noel, stayed silent but gripped Zalika's shirt with one hand, his other thumb in his mouth. Jae-Ryun tried to help, reaching for Amari to give Zalika a free hand, but the child whimpered and burrowed deeper into her mother's shoulder. "She doesn't know you," Zalika said, her voice strained. "None of them do." The words hit harder than they should have. Of course they didn't know him. He was a stranger. A tall Korean man in expensive clothes showing up in the middle of the night. Why would they trust him? Dr. Kim's office was in a part of the city where medical care came with leather chairs in the waiting room and paintings on the walls. The doctor himself, a man in his 60s with kind eyes and steady hands, examined Amari while Jae-Ryun and Zalika waited. The twins had finally fallen asleep on the waiting room couch, curled together like puppies. "She has a respiratory infection," Dr. Kim said finally, emerging from the exam room. "Not pneumonia, thank God, but it needs to be monitored. I'm prescribing antibiotics and a fever reducer. She should improve in 48 hours. If she doesn't, or if she gets worse, call me immediately. Day or night." He handed Zalika 2 prescriptions and a card with his personal number. "Thank you," Zalika said, her voice thick with relief and exhaustion. "How much do I?" "Already handled," Dr. Kim said, glancing at Jae-Ryun. He'd known Jae-Ryun's family for years. Knew better than to ask questions. "Just take care of that sweet girl." Back in the car, with Amari sleeping fitfully in Zalika's arms and the boys sprawled across the back seat, the adrenaline started to fade. Zalika sagged against the window, eyes closed. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I know I said I didn't need your help, but thank you." "You don't have to thank me." Jae-Ryun glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "They're my children too." Her eyes opened, meeting his in the mirror. "Are they?" "Because being a father takes more than DNA, Jae-Ryun. It takes showing up. Being there. You can't just swoop in during a crisis and call yourself a parent." "I know that." "Do you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you're playing hero. Writing checks and making calls and fixing problems. But what happens when the crisis is over? When things are boring and hard and exhausting? When it's 3 a.m. and somebody needs a diaper change and somebody else is crying and the third one just threw up on you? Where will you be then?" "I want to find out." She laughed, tired and skeptical. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Then show me. Let me learn." "Why?" She turned to look at him fully now, not through the mirror. "Why does this matter so much to you? You got away clean. You could have kept walking. Pretended you never saw us. Why risk your perfect life?" "Because it's not perfect. It never was." Jae-Ryun pulled up to her building. "I've spent 4 years living a life that was planned for me. Doing what I was told. Being who I was supposed to be. And I was miserable. I just didn't let myself admit it until I saw you again. So this is about you feeling trapped." "No. This is about me finally understanding what matters." He turned in his seat to face her. "I can't change the past. I can't take back leaving. But I can try to be better now. I can try to be someone they deserve." Zalika studied his face in the dim light of the car. "The social worker comes back in 10 days. I know. She's going to ask about their father. About support. About stability. I know. If you're going to do this, you have to commit. You can't be halfway in." These are children, Jae-Ryun. They'll get attached. And if you leave again... Her voice broke. If you leave again, it'll break them. And I can't watch that happen. I won't leave. You did before. I was different before. People don't change that fast. Maybe not. But circumstances do. And I'm telling you, Zalika, I'm not walking away. Not from them. Not from you. She flinched at the last part. There is no me. Whatever we had died 4 years ago. I know. Good. Because this isn't about us. This is only about them. I understand. She reached for the door handle, then stopped. The social worker is going to want to see where they live. She's going to want to see consistent presence from both parents. She's going to want to see a stable home environment. What are you saying? Zalika took a deep breath, like she was about to jump off a cliff. I'm saying that this apartment isn't going to pass a follow-up inspection. It's too small, too run down. And if she decides it's not suitable... She swallowed hard. If she decides that, she'll start looking at alternatives. Foster care. Temporary placement. That's not going to happen. You can't just throw money at this and make it go away. No. But I can offer an alternative. Jae-Ryun had been thinking about this for days, turning it over, examining it from every angle. I have a property. A house, actually. It's on my family's estate, but it's separate. A guest house. 3 bedrooms, full kitchen, private entrance. It's empty right now. Zalika stared at him. You want us to move into your guest house? Temporarily. Until you get on your feet. Until the social worker signs off. Until you get bored and kick us out? Until you're ready to leave, he corrected. No pressure. No strings. Just a safe, stable place for the children. With both parents present. I can't accept that. Why not? Because it's too much. Because I'll owe you. Because... You don't owe me anything. Jae-Ryun's voice was firm. If anything, I owe you. 4 years of child support. 4 years of help you didn't have. This doesn't even begin to balance the scales. I don't want to live in your world. It's not my world. It's just a house. 4 walls and a roof. A place where Amari can be sick without you panicking about emergency room wait times. Where the twins can have their own room. Where you can breathe. Zalika looked down at Amari, sleeping in her arms. At the twins, tangled together on the seat. At the life she'd been barely managing to hold together. 1 month, she said finally. I'll try it for 1 month. If it doesn't work, if you're using this to control me, if there are strings I can't see yet, I'm gone. We're gone. Understood. Understood. And you don't get to play house. You don't get to pretend we're a family. You're helping, that's all. You're the father who's finally paying child support. Nothing more. Whatever you need it to be. She met his eyes one more time. I don't trust you, Jae-Ryun. I don't know if I ever will again. I know. I'll earn it. We'll see. Moving day came 3 days later. Zalika had insisted on packing everything herself, refusing the professional movers Jae-Ryun offered. She showed up at the estate with 3 garbage bags of clothes, 2 boxes of toys, and a cardboard box full of kitchen supplies that had clearly seen better days. The guest house was like something from a different world compared to her apartment. Hardwood floors. Modern appliances. Windows that let in actual sunlight. 3 bedrooms that were each bigger than her old living room. A bathroom with a tub deep enough to actually bathe 3 toddlers comfortably. The twins ran through the rooms, shouting with excitement, their voices echoing off the high ceilings. Mama! Mama, look! So big! 2 rooms! Even Noel, usually quiet, made happy sounds and flapped his hands, a sign Jae-Ryun had learned meant he was excited. Zalika stood in the middle of the living room, looking lost. Where's your house? She asked quietly. The main house. Across the courtyard. About 200 meters. So you'll be close. Close enough to help. Far enough to give you space. She nodded slowly. The social worker is coming in a week. I know. I'll be here. She'll want to meet you, talk to you, ask about your intentions. I'll tell her the truth. That I'm the father. That I'm committed to supporting my children. That I'm working to build a relationship with them. She'll ask why you weren't there before. And I'll tell her I made a mistake. That I didn't know they existed, and when I found out, I immediately took responsibility. Zalika turned to face him. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple. But it's true. Cairo came running back into the room. Mama. Man, stay. Zalika's expression flickered. What? Man, stay with us. Cairo looked between his mother and Jae-Ryun with curious eyes. He our daddy. The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Zalika crouched down to Cairo's level. This is someone who's going to help us for a while. Okay. But is he our daddy? Cairo was persistent. Sungmin at playgroup has daddy. We have daddy too. Jae-Ryun felt something crack in his chest. The simple question from a 3-year-old that carried the weight of everything he'd done wrong. Zalika looked up at him, her eyes asking a question he couldn't read. Yes, Jae-Ryun said, his voice rough. He knelt down beside Zalika, making himself eye-level with Cairo. Yes, I'm your daddy. Cairo studied him with a serious intensity only small children could manage. Why you not here before? I didn't know you were here. I was far away. But now I know, and I'm here now. And I'm going to stay. Promise. The word was a knife. How did you promise a 3-year-old you wouldn't leave when you'd already proven you were capable of exactly that? I promise, Jae-Ryun said anyway. I promise I'll be here. Cairo seemed to accept this. He turned and shouted toward the bedrooms. Noel! Amari! We have daddy now! The sound of small feet thundering back. Amari appeared first, fully recovered from her infection, her eyes bright with curiosity. Noel came slower, hanging back by the doorway. You our daddy? Amari asked, tilting her head. Yes. Okay. She accepted this with the easy logic of toddlers. You cook. Mama cooks. I can try to learn. Mama teaches you. Amari nodded like this solved everything. She walked up to Jae-Ryun and patted his knee. You tall. Can you reach high things? Yes, I can reach high things. Good. Mama can't reach high shelf. She said this very seriously, like being tall was the primary requirement for fatherhood. Noel still hadn't moved from the doorway. He watched everything with careful eyes, his thumb in his mouth. That's Noel, Zalika said quietly to Jae-Ryun. He takes longer to warm up. And he's autistic. High-functioning, but he has sensitivities. Loud noises, unexpected touch, changes in routine, they're hard for him. What does he need? Patience. Consistency. Understanding that sometimes he needs space. Jae-Ryun looked at the small boy in the doorway. Noel looked back, assessing. Hi, Noel, Jae-Ryun said quietly. You don't have to come close if you don't want to. That's okay. Noel blinked. Then, slowly, he took his thumb out of his mouth. You stay quiet. Yes. I can stay quiet. Good. Noel put his thumb back in and continued watching. It was, Jae-Ryun thought, a start. The first few days were an education in chaos. Jae-Ryun had thought he understood what caring for children meant. He'd read the books Dae-Suk had provided, studied articles about child development, talked to pediatric experts. But reading about toddlers and living with 3 of them were completely different experiences. They woke at ungodly hours. They required constant supervision. They fought over toys, spilled things, asked questions that had no logical answers, and had emotional meltdowns over situations that seemed insignificant to adult minds but were clearly world-ending crises to them. And they were exhausting. Jae-Ryun started coming to the guest house every morning before work. He'd arrive at 6:30 to find Zalika already up, making breakfast while managing 3 small humans demanding attention. I can help, he offered the 3rd morning. You'll be late for work. Work can wait. She looked at him skeptically but handed him a bowl. Fine. Make oatmeal. Not too hot. Noel won't eat it if it's too hot. He made oatmeal. Burned the first batch. Got the second one right. Noel ate 3 bites and declared he was done. Cairo wanted eggs instead. Amari spilled juice on herself and needed a complete outfit change. It was 7:15 and Jae-Ryun was already exhausted. "This is every morning?" he asked Zalika. She laughed, actually laughed, and it was the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. "Every morning. Every afternoon. Every evening. Welcome to parenthood. How do you do this alone?" The smile faded. "You just do. Because you have to." He started learning their routines. Breakfast was structured chaos. Noel needed his plate arranged in a specific way, vegetables on the left, protein on the right, never touching. Cairo would eat anything but needed to be reminded to actually sit down. Amari was the adventurous eater but also the messiest. After breakfast came the negotiation of getting 3 toddlers dressed. This somehow took 45 minutes and involved extensive debates about whether dinosaurs or princesses were more appropriate for a regular Tuesday. Then there was learning Korean words. Zalika had been teaching them, wanting them to connect with their heritage. They knew basic words, spoken a mix of Korean and English that reflected their complicated identity. "Appa," Amari said one morning, pointing at Jae-Ryun. He froze. "What?" "Appa means daddy in Korean," Zalika said quietly. "I taught them that. Just in case they ever met you." The implication hit him. She'd been teaching them about their Korean side, preparing them for a father she'd thought they'd never meet, hoping against hope that somehow they'd understand where they came from. "Appa," Amari repeated, giggling now. She ran up and grabbed his hand. "Appa, come play." And just like that, he had a name. Noel was the most challenging and, paradoxically, the most rewarding. He didn't speak much, communicated in gestures and sounds. He had rigid routines. Breakfast had to be at exactly 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 6. Any deviation caused meltdowns. But he was also brilliant. He could count to 50 in Korean. He noticed patterns others missed. He built elaborate structures with blocks that showed an understanding of balance and symmetry that was remarkable for a 3-year-old. "He's special," Zalika said one afternoon, watching Noel arrange his toys in perfect lines. "The doctors say he's gifted, actually. High-functioning autism often comes with areas of exceptional ability." "What does he need?" "Routine. Patience. Someone who doesn't try to force him to be normal." She looked at Jae-Ryun. "Can you handle that? Can you accept that one of your children might never be what society expects? He's perfect exactly as he is. Easy to say. Harder to live." But Jae-Ryun meant it. Watching Noel, seeing the way his mind worked, the way he found order in chaos, it was beautiful. Different, yes. Challenging, absolutely. But beautiful. One evening, Jae-Ryun was sitting on the floor of the living room, trying to understand Noel's latest block structure. The boy had been building for an hour, completely absorbed, and Jae-Ryun had learned that interrupting was not appreciated. Noel placed the final block. Then, without looking at Jae-Ryun, he reached out and took his hand. Just held it. Zalika, watching from the kitchen, gasped quietly. "He never does that. He doesn't like touch unless he initiates it." Jae-Ryun sat very still, afraid to move, afraid to break whatever trust had just been extended. Noel's hand was tiny and warm in his. The boy still wasn't looking at him, still focused on his blocks, but he was holding on. "Hi, Noel," Jae-Ryun whispered. Noel squeezed his hand once, then let go and went back to his blocks. It was, Jae-Ryun realized, acceptance. The day before the social worker's visit, Zalika was a wreck. She cleaned the already clean house, reorganized the children's rooms, made lists of things to say, things not to say, ways to prove stability. "It'll be fine," Jae-Ryun said, watching her wipe down kitchen counters for the 3rd time. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Look at this place. Look at the children. They're happy. They're healthy. They're thriving. Because of your money." "No. Because of you. The money just made things easier. You're the one who gets up at 6 every morning. You're the one who knows Noel needs his food arranged a certain way. You're the one who makes them laugh. This is all you, Zalika." She stopped cleaning and looked at him. "Why are you being so nice?" "Because it's true." "No. I mean, why are you here at all? You could have just paid child support and walked away. You didn't have to move us here. You didn't have to show up every morning. You didn't have to learn their routines and their names for things and—" She trailed off, emotion cracking her voice. "You didn't have to try." "Yes, I did." "Why?" "Because I love you." The words rose up again and he pushed them down again. She didn't want to hear that. Wouldn't believe it. Maybe it wasn't even true. Maybe it was just guilt and obligation and the ghost of what they'd been. "Because they deserve a father," he said instead. "And you deserve support. And I'm trying to be better than I was." Zalika studied his face for a long moment. Then, quietly, "You're different than I remember." "Different how?" "Less certain. More human." She smiled sadly. "The Jae-Ryun I knew 4 years ago had all the answers. Was always in control. Never admitted weakness. I was pretending. I know that now." The doorbell rang. 3 small bodies immediately ran toward it, shouting about who would answer first. "That's Dae-suk," Jae-Ryun said. "I asked him to bring some things for tomorrow. Documents proving residence, employment verification, character references." "You really thought of everything." "I'm trying." Zalika touched his arm briefly. "I know." "And Jae-Ryun, thank you. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever happens after, thank you for trying." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was something. And right now, something was enough. Mrs. Eleanor Briggs arrived at exactly 10 o'clock the next morning, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing an expression that gave nothing away. She was a woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a gentle voice that somehow made even difficult questions feel less invasive. The children were on their best behavior, which for toddlers meant controlled chaos rather than complete chaos. Cairo showed her his toy cars. Amari insisted on demonstrating how high she could jump. Noel stayed back, watching carefully, his routine disrupted by the stranger's presence. "And you must be Mr. Han," Mrs. Briggs said, turning to Jae-Ryun with an assessing gaze. "Yes, ma'am." "The father?" "Yes." "But not listed on the birth certificates." Here it was. The question that would determine everything. "No, ma'am. I wasn't aware of the children's existence until recently. Ms. Adeyemi and I lost contact before she discovered she was pregnant. When I learned about them 3 weeks ago, I immediately took steps to provide support and establish a relationship." Mrs. Briggs made a note. 3 weeks is a very short time to go from absent to present. "Yes, ma'am. But I'm committed to making up for lost time." Commitment is easy to claim. Harder to prove. She looked around the guest house, taking in the comfortable furniture, the children's toys organized neatly, the kitchen stocked with healthy food. This is quite a change from the Dockline District Apartment. Zalika spoke up, her voice steady despite the tension Jae-Ryun could see in her shoulders. "Mr. Han offered temporary housing until I could get on my feet financially. It seemed like the best option for the children's stability. Temporary housing in a guest house on a private estate." Mrs. Briggs's tone was neutral, but the implication was clear. This looked like a rich man buying his way out of trouble. "The children needed a safe, stable environment," Jae-Ryun said carefully. "I had the means to provide that. It seemed irresponsible not to offer." "And what happens when Ms. Adeyemi gets on her feet?" "When the temporary arrangement ends. Then she decides what's best for her and the children. This isn't about control. It's about giving them options they didn't have before." Mrs. Briggs turned to Zalika. "Is that how you see it? Options, not control?" Zalika met the social worker's eyes directly. 3 weeks ago, I was facing eviction. I was working 3 jobs and still couldn't keep the lights on consistently. I was terrified every day that I'd lose my children because I couldn't provide what they needed." Her voice shook, but she kept going. "Mr. Han's support has given me breathing room. Time to actually be a mother instead of just surviving. Is it complicated? Yes. Is it perfect? No. But my children are safe, healthy, and happy. That's what matters. And the father's involvement? How do the children feel about that? As if on cue, Amari ran up to Jae-Ryun and tugged on his pants. Appa, I'm hungry. Jae-Ryun crouched down. We just had breakfast, little one. But I'm hungry now. She said it with a dramatic emphasis only a 3-year-old could muster. How about some fruit? Would that help? Strawberries. Let me check if we have strawberries. He stood and headed to the kitchen, Amari trailing behind him like a devoted shadow. Mrs. Briggs watched this interaction with interest. Then she turned to where Cairo was building something with blocks and Noel was arranging his cars in perfect lines. Cairo, she said gently, can you tell me about your Appa? Cairo looked up, considered the question with a seriousness that was heartbreaking. He's new. But he's nice. He helps Mama. And he knows how Noel likes things. What do you mean, how Noel likes things? Noel doesn't like when things are wrong. Appa learns the right way. Cairo said this like it was obvious, like anyone who paid attention would know. Mrs. Briggs made another note. She spent the next hour observing, asking questions, watching how Jae-Ryun and Zalika interacted with the children and each other. She noticed when Jae-Ryun automatically arranged Noel's lunch plate the correct way. She saw how Zalika and Jae-Ryun moved around each other in the kitchen with surprising coordination. She watched Noel, usually so reserved, reach for Jae-Ryun's hand when he got overwhelmed by her presence. Finally, she closed her portfolio. I'm going to recommend that the case be closed, she said, and Zalika's knees nearly buckled with relief. The children are clearly thriving. Both parents are present and engaged. The home environment is stable and safe. However, she looked directly at Jae-Ryun, I'll be doing a follow-up in 3 months. Unannounced. I want to make sure this stability is real, not just a show for my benefit. It's real, Jae-Ryun said quietly. I promise you, it's real. We'll see. Mrs. Briggs gathered her things. Ms. Adeyemi, you're doing a wonderful job. Those children are lucky to have you. Mr. Han, you have a lot of time to make up for. I suggest you use it wisely. After she left, Zalika sank onto the couch and put her face in her hands. Jae-Ryun thought she was crying until he heard the sound. Laughter, slightly hysterical, bubbling up from relief so intense it had nowhere else to go. We did it, she said, looking up at him with tears streaming down her face. We actually did it. You did it. You're an incredible mother, Zalika. Don't. She wiped her eyes. Don't do that. Don't give me all the credit when you're the one who made this possible. The house made it possible. You made them who they are. She stood up, walked over to him, and for a moment he thought she might hug him. Instead, she just looked at him, really looked at him, and said, Thank you. For showing up. For trying. For not giving up even when I made it hard. You had every right to make it hard. I know. But you stayed anyway. It felt like something was shifting between them. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. The first crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. Then Jae-Ryun's phone rang. His father's name flashed on the screen. The moment shattered. I have to take this, he said, already knowing it would be bad. He stepped outside, answered, and heard his father's voice, cold and sharp as a knife. You ended your engagement. Yes. You moved a woman and her children into the guest house. Yes. Foreign children. Illegitimate children. Children who threaten everything we've built. They're my children. They're a mistake. His father's voice was ice. And you're compounding that mistake by acknowledging them. They exist whether I acknowledge them or not. Then let them exist somewhere else. Pay the woman off. Set up a trust fund. Visit occasionally if you must. But you cannot bring them into this family. You cannot make them part of our world. Why not? Because they're a liability. His father's control finally cracked, anger bleeding through. Do you understand what you've done? The Yoon family is furious. Our allies are questioning our judgment. Our enemies are circling, sensing weakness. And for what? For some woman you had a fling with years ago? For children who should never have been born? Something in Jae-Ryun went very cold. Very still. Don't ever say that again. I'll say whatever I need to say to make you see sense. You have responsibilities, Jae-Ryun. Obligations that go beyond your personal desires. The family comes first. It has always come first. Then maybe I don't want to be part of this family. Silence. Long and terrible. You don't mean that, his father said finally. I do. I'm done, father. Done with the manipulation. Done with being told who to marry, how to live, what matters. I choose them. I choose my children. If you walk away from this family, you walk away from everything. The business. The protection. The power. Everything. I know. You'll have nothing. I'll have them. That's not nothing. You're throwing your life away for a temporary infatuation. No. I'm finally starting to live for something that matters. Jae-Ryun took a breath. I'll have the lawyers draw up paperwork. I'm severing all ties to the family business. I want nothing. No claims, no inheritance, no involvement. I'm out. You can't just walk away. It doesn't work like that. Watch me. He hung up. His hands were shaking. He'd just burned his entire life to the ground. Everything he'd been raised for, groomed for, everything that had defined him, gone. Cut loose with a phone call. And he felt free. The door opened behind him. Zalika. I heard, she said quietly. The walls are thin. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to. Did you mean it? What you said? Every word. She stepped closer. Jae-Ryun, you just gave up everything. Your family, your business, your future. For us. No. For me. I gave it up for me. Because I can't keep living a life that requires me to abandon the people I care about. The people you care about. She repeated it softly, testing the words. Is that what we are? You're everything I walked away from once. I won't make that mistake again. Even if it costs you everything. Especially then. She studied his face in the afternoon light. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Your family won't let this go easily. They'll fight back. They'll make things difficult. I know. We could be in danger. I'll keep you safe. How? Without your family's protection, without their resources. I have money of my own. Investments they don't control. Enough to start over. To build something new. He looked at her directly. And I have something more important than money or power. What's that? A reason to fight. Zalika's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared. So am I. What if this doesn't work? What if? Then we figure it out together. You and me. Partners. Not because we have to be, but because we choose to be. I don't know if I can trust you yet. I know. I'll wait. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for leaving. I know. I'll wait for that too. She laughed, broken and beautiful. You're insane. Probably. The kids will wake up from their naps soon. I should go. Give you space. I have calls to make, lawyers to contact, a life to dismantle. But before he could move, she reached out and took his hand. Just held it, the same way Noel had held his hand that first time. A gesture of trust so fragile it could break with a wrong word. Thank you, she whispered, for choosing us. Thank you for letting me try. The next few weeks were chaos of a different kind. Lawyers drafted documents. Assets were divided. Jae-Ryun signed away his inheritance, his position in the company, his claim to the family name's power. His father refused to speak to him. His mother called once, crying, begging him to reconsider. I can't, he told her. I'm sorry, but I can't. You're choosing them over your own family. No. I'm finally choosing my actual family. She hung up without saying goodbye. The Yoon family made their displeasure known publicly. Business partners distanced themselves. Doors that had always been open suddenly closed. Jae-Ryun went from being one of the most powerful young men in Baekryun City to being functionally persona non grata in his former circles. And he found he didn't care. Because every morning, he woke up and went to the guest house where 3 toddlers were learning to call him Appa with increasing confidence. Where Zalika was slowly, cautiously, beginning to trust him again. Where life was messy and unpredictable and absolutely nothing like the controlled existence he'd had before. And it was better. God help him, it was so much better. They fell into routines. Jae-Ryun handled breakfast while Zalika got the kids dressed. He learned to braid Amari's hair, badly at first, then with increasing competence. He mastered the art of negotiating with Cairo, who could argue like a tiny lawyer. He learned Noel's signals, understanding when he needed space and when he needed quiet presence. And slowly, over shared meals and bedtime stories and the 1,000 small moments that made up daily life, he learned Zalika again too. She was different than he remembered. Stronger. More guarded. But also more grounded. Motherhood had changed her, carved away everything soft and left something diamond-hard beneath. She didn't suffer fools. Didn't accept half measures. Demanded honesty even when it hurt. But she also laughed more than he remembered. Found joy in small things. Could make a game out of anything. Could turn a bad day around with a smile. He fell in love with her all over again. But he didn't say it. Couldn't say it. Because saying it would be asking for something she wasn't ready to give. 6 months passed. Then 8. The children grew, their personalities sharpening. Cairo revealed himself as a natural leader, organizing his siblings with surprising effectiveness. Amari was fearless, climbing everything, tasting everything, diving into life with gleeful abandon. Noel's brilliance became more apparent. He was reading basic Korean characters at 3.5, could do math in his head that impressed elementary school teachers. Zalika's food truck became more successful. Word spread about the Korean-African fusion dishes she created. She started getting catering requests. Corporate events. Wedding receptions. "I'm thinking about opening a restaurant," she said one night after the kids were asleep. They were sitting on the guest house porch, watching the stars. "A real one. With tables and a kitchen and everything." "You should. It's expensive. Risky. You're talented enough to make it work." "You really think so?" "I know so." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Would you want to invest? Be a partner?" His heart stuttered. "You'd want me as a partner?" "In the business, yes. You understand restaurants. You have connections I don't. And—" She paused. "And I trust you now. With this. Maybe not with everything yet, but with this." "Then yes. Absolutely yes." They started planning. Drawing up business proposals. Scouting locations. Arguing about menu items and decor and whether Korean or African influences should be more prominent. The answer ended up being both, perfectly balanced, just like their children. And somewhere in the middle of all that planning, Zalika started touching him more. A hand on his arm when she laughed. Leaning against him when she was tired. Small gestures that meant trust was becoming something more. But she still slept in her room, and he still went back to the main house every night, and the line between partnership and relationship stayed firmly drawn. Until one night, 1 year after he'd first seen her in the park, when everything changed. The restaurant was finally open. Ember and Soul, they'd called it. A Korean-African fusion place that served jollof rice alongside kimchi, that offered suya-spiced galbi and akara made with Korean red bean paste. It was weird and wonderful and completely them. The opening night was chaos. The place was packed. Every table full. People were waiting outside. The food was flying out of the kitchen faster than they could make it. Jae-Ryun watched Zalika in her element, commanding her kitchen staff, tasting everything, adjusting seasonings on the fly. She was magnificent. Powerful. Exactly who she was always meant to be. When they finally closed at midnight, when the last customer had left and the staff had cleaned up, it was just the two of them in the empty restaurant. "We did it," Zalika said, looking around in wonder. "We actually did it." "You did it. I just helped." "No. We did it. Together. She walked over to where he stood by the bar. Her chef's coat was stained. Her hair was escaping from its tie. She looked exhausted and exhilarated and absolutely beautiful. "Thank you," she said, "for believing in me, for supporting this dream, for being here. Always. Jae-Ryun." She took a breath. "I need to tell you something." His heart started racing. "Okay. I forgive you. For leaving. For being a coward. For all of it. I forgive you." The words hit him like a physical blow. "Zalika." "I'm not finished." She held up a hand. "I forgive you, but more than that, I love you. Still. Again. I don't know. But I love you. And I'm tired of pretending I don't. You love me." He repeated it, testing it, making sure he'd heard correctly. "Yes, you idiot. I love you. And if you're going to propose, now would be a really good time because I don't think I can say that again without dying of embarrassment." He laughed, pulled the ring box from his pocket. He'd been carrying it for 3 months, waiting for the right moment, and dropped to one knee right there in the restaurant. "Zalika Adeyemi, you are the strongest, most brilliant, most infuriating woman I've ever known. You gave me 3 incredible children. You gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. You gave me a life I actually want to live. Will you marry me?" She looked at the ring, a simple band with 3 small stones, one for each child, and smiled through tears. "Yes. God help me, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, stood up, and kissed her. It was their first kiss in over 4 years. It felt like coming home. They were still kissing when the restaurant door burst open. They broke apart, startled, and Jae-Ryun's blood ran cold. 3 men stood in the doorway. He recognized them immediately. Enforcers from his father's organization. The kind of men who solved problems permanently. "Mr. Han," the lead man said with a smile that promised violence. "Your father would like a word." Jae-Ryun stepped in front of Zalika. "I severed all ties. I have nothing to do with the family anymore. Your father disagrees. He says you took something that belongs to him." "I took nothing. Information. Contacts. Business secrets." The man shrugged. "He wants them back. I don't have. And if you don't cooperate, he suggested we should speak with Ms. Adeyemi. And perhaps those adorable triplets we've heard so much about." The threat was crystal clear. Cooperate or your family gets hurt. Zalika's hand found his, squeezed tight. "Jae-Ryun." "It's okay." His mind was racing, calculating, looking for an exit that didn't exist. "Everything's going to be okay." "That's what you think," the enforcer said. "But see, the thing is, you made a choice, Mr. Han. You walked away from protection. From power. From the family that could keep you safe. And now you're going to learn what that choice costs." The man pulled out a phone, dialed a number, and held it out. "Your father wants to talk to you. I suggest you listen carefully." Jae-Ryun took the phone with a shaking hand, and as his father's voice came through, cold, absolute, unforgiving, he realized the real fight was just beginning. He'd thought leaving the family would free him. He'd been wrong. And now everyone he loved was in danger because of choices he couldn't take back. Zalika's hand tightened in his, the engagement ring catching the light, and Jae-Ryun made a silent promise. Whatever came next, whatever his father wanted, whatever price had to be paid, he would protect them. Even if it cost him everything. Especially then. If this story touched you in any way, if you felt the weight of Jae-Ryun's choices, if you hoped for Zalika's healing, if you celebrated the triplets finding their father, I'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment and tell me what moment hit you hardest, because I read every single one and they genuinely mean everything to me. Also, let me know what city you're watching from. I absolutely love discovering where all of you amazing people are located around the world. This story isn't over. Not by a long shot. Jae-Ryun's father is coming for him, and the family he's built is about to face its greatest test. Will love be enough? Will his sacrifice matter? Will they survive what's coming? Stay with me to find out. Until next time, stay blessed, stay safe, and remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful destinations. even if the road is more dangerous than you ever imagined.